The cowboy manages to dodge the bank teller's wild gunfire and makes a run for it, grabbing a stash of money from the cash box on his way out. But just as he bursts through the door, the teller is waiting and opens fire again, forcing the cowboy to take cover behind a nearby well. He tries to return fire, but nothing hits. The teller has armored himself with a ridiculous suit of pots and pans, and the bullets just bounce right off. Protected by his kitchenware armor, the teller boldly marches forward and knocks the cowboy out cold. Hours later, the cowboy wakes up to find himself tied to a tree, his hands bound to the saddle of his horse. A local posse had already found him, passed judgment, and sentenced him to hang. Now, they're just waiting for his last words. But before he can utter a thing, the entire group is ambushed by a band of Comanche warriors who kill everyone. Everyone except the cowboy. Finding it amusing, they leave him tied to his horse, expecting the cruel setup to finish him off on its own. For hours, the cowboy tries to stay as still as possible, knowing that any sudden movement from his horse might tighten the noose and end him right there. Just when things look hopeless, he's found by a passing drover who frees him by shooting the rope and offers him a ride. It seems like a lucky break, until the cowboy realizes his savior is actually a cattle rustler. When a new posse shows up in pursuit, the rustler bolts, leaving the cowboy behind to take the fall. Again, this time, the cowboy is hauled into town, given a quick trial, and sentenced to hang. As he waits at the gallows, he chooses to focus on a beautiful woman in the crowd, hoping she'll be the last thing he sees before the end. Elsewhere, in a different part of the frontier, an aging impresario is traveling with a young performer named Harrison. Harrison has no arms or legs, but possesses a haunting, beautiful voice. He recites famous works, Shakespeare, biblical passages, speeches by Lincoln, while the impresario sets up their wagon as a makeshift stage in every small town they visit. The impresario handles everything, dressing Harrison, feeding him, even helping him with personal hygiene. It's a hard and lonely life, and Harrison endures it with quiet resilience. The impresario, however, is growing weary. He's tired of the responsibility, tired of the lack of money, and tired of hauling a young man who can no longer draw a crowd. When they visit brothels, the impresario doesn't spare a second thought for Harrison. He simply turns him away from the bed and lets him listen to everything from the corner while he enjoys himself. Their situation worsens as they travel deeper into the mountains. Fewer people show up for the shows, and fewer coins land in the collection tin. One night, the impresario realizes why no one came to their performance. A different act has everyone's attention. It's a chicken. A simple chicken trained to peck at painted numbers and do basic math. The crowd loves it. Seeing a new opportunity, the impresario buys the chicken. He begins to take care of it with the same attention he once gave Harrison. But Harrison sees the writing on the wall, and he knows something grim is coming. It's a bright afternoon in the Wild West when Buster Scruggs rides across the dusty, empty landscape on horseback. With his spotless white outfit and upbeat singing, he looks like your average charming cowboy. But the truth is, Buster is the most feared gunslinger in the region, and there's a sizable bounty on his head. While on his journey, Buster comes across a small cantina and heads inside for a drink. But when he asks for whiskey, the bartender turns him down. Whiskey is outlawed, and only true outlaws get served. Buster tries to explain that despite his friendly smile and clean clothes, he qualifies. The other patrons aren't convinced, and one cocky cowboy even tries to pick a fight and throw Buster out. Big mistake. In the blink of an eye, Buster pulls his gun and shoots every man in the cantina, showing just how deadly he really is. After leaving the bar behind, Buster makes his way to a small town called Frenchman's Gulch, a place he's never been before. His first stop is the local saloon, where he politely hands over his firearms, respecting the no-guns policy. Inside, he joins a poker game, but only on the condition that he takes the cards left by a player who just walked away. As soon as he looks at his hand, Buster realizes he's been dealt the infamous dead man's hand, and he refuses to play it. The other players take offense, especially a rough-looking man named Joe. Ignoring the rules, Joe pulls a hidden gun to threaten Buster. But Buster is quicker. He kicks a loose board on the table, just right so it snaps the gun back toward Joe, shooting him dead on the spot. The saloon goes quiet with tension until Buster, in typical fashion, breaks into a song about the late Joe. The whole place joins in, singing and dancing until the doors swing open again. Joe's brother has arrived, and he wants revenge. The two duel, and once again, Buster proves his unmatched skill, first shooting every one of the man's fingers, then killing him with a flashy shot using only the reflection in the bar mirror. Buster is riding high, proud and smug, until a young cowboy shows up. He's a singer too, and his name is the Kid. Like many others, he challenges Buster to a duel. But this time, Buster loses. The Kid is faster, and Buster takes a fatal shot. As his soul floats up and away, Buster reflects that he probably should have expected this. Nobody stays the fastest forever. Still, he joins the Kid's tune as he fades away. Meanwhile, over in New Mexico, another cowboy rides up to a lone bank in the middle of nowhere. He tries to pull off a robbery, but the teller isn't as helpless as he seems. As he bends down to grab the cash, he actually reaches for hidden weapons and launches a wild counterattack before darting out of sight. The following day, the impresario stops the wagon at a lonely bridge. He picks up a large stone and drops it into the river below, measuring the depth with a cold calculation in his eyes. The splash and silence that follow tell him everything he needs to know. Moments later, the impresario continues down the road. But this time, Harrison is no longer riding beside him. The only passenger in the wagon now is the chicken. The impresario has thrown Harrison into the river, choosing profits over compassion. Elsewhere, a river flows down from a quiet mountain valley, where a rugged old prospector has arrived in search of gold. His first few pans only yield small specks of it, but he remains patient, using the direction of the flow and the weight of each find to guide him toward the main deposit. He sets up camp beside the stream, surviving by fishing and stealing eggs from the nearby bird nests. Day after day, the prospector digs shallow holes, carefully charting each new trace of gold he discovers. Eventually, through sheer determination and years of experience, he pinpoints the location of the source. He digs deep, and his instincts prove right. At the bottom of the hole, he uncovers a thick vein of gold. It's the kind of strike that would make a man rich for life. But just as he begins to celebrate, a gunshot rings out. A younger man, who had secretly been trailing the prospector, has finally made his move. He fires and hits the prospector, knocking him into the hole. Thinking the job is done, the young man lights a cigarette and climbs into the hole to deal with the body. But the prospector had only been playing dead. In a sudden burst of energy, he tackles the man and the two wrestle for the gun. The prospector manages to turn the tables and shoots the attacker dead. He checks his own wound and confirms the bullet passed clean through without hitting anything vital. After bandaging himself up, he finishes mining the gold and buries the young man's body in the same hole. Then, with his saddlebags full of riches, he climbs onto his horse and leaves the valley behind. Meanwhile, far across the plains, siblings Alice and Gilbert are traveling across the Oregon Trail as part of a wagon train. Gilbert, always full of schemes but lacking in sense, has promised Alice that a new business partner is waiting for her in Oregon, one willing to marry her. They travel with Gilbert's noisy dog, President Pierce, who is driving the rest of the group mad with his endless barking. Only a few days into the journey, Gilbert suffers a violent coughing fit and collapses. It's cholera. He dies soon after, leaving Alice stunned and alone. Billy and Arthur, the leaders of the wagon train, help Alice bury her brother and give her a choice: go back home or keep traveling with them. Realizing she has no one and nothing to return to, Alice chooses to continue west, hoping she might still find new life. The very next day, Alice runs into more trouble. The young man Gilbert had hired to lead their wagon insists he was promised a wage of $400, half of which is due at the halfway point. Alice has no money, and if Gilbert had any left, it was likely in his coat, which is now 6 feet under with him. With the wagon train already too far along the trail to turn back, Alice asks Arthur and Billy what to do about the driver's demand. Both men agree the $400 wage is outrageous, well above the norm. Alice blames her late brother Gilbert's poor business sense, but Billy suspects the young driver is bluffing. His advice: ignore the claim for now. When they reach the halfway mark, he'll put a little fear into the boy and see if he confesses the truth. Meanwhile, President Pierce keeps bothering the rest of the travelers with nonstop barking. Because the dog was Gilbert's, Alice feels no obligation to keep him. Taking her cue, Billy rides the animal deep into the valley and fires a warning shot into the air, shooing the dog away. The journey carries on smoothly, and Alice spends more time with Billy. They discover they share similar views on life and philosophy. When the hired driver again asks about his pay, Billy tries a gentle talk first. When that fails, he makes Alice another offer. He's been thinking about quitting the wagon train, he explains. If Alice marries him, he'll assume Gilbert's debt and give her a stable home and family. Surprised, yet increasingly fond of Billy, Alice accepts. Days later, Arthur notices fresh footprints near camp and checks on everyone, only to find Alice missing. She'd heard President Pierce barking at prairie dogs and wandered off, straying farther from the wagons than she realized. Arthur tracks her down and urges a quick return, but they're intercepted by a war party of Native Americans. With 2 guns between them, Arthur keeps one and presses the other into Alice's hands, telling her to end her own life if he falls. Capture, he warns, would mean a far worse fate. Arthur's marksmanship drives most of the attackers away, but just when he thinks it's finished, a warrior blindsides him with a blow that knocks him down. Feigning unconsciousness, Arthur waits until the attacker leans in, then shoots him. Hurrying back to Alice, he finds the worst has happened. Believing him dead, she followed his instructions and used the pistol on herself. Arthur lays his coat over Alice's body, then starts the long walk back to the wagon train with President Pierce at his side, wondering how he will break the news to Billy. Elsewhere, on a dusty road, 5 passengers ride a stagecoach toward Fort Morgan. Thigpen, who has spent most of the trip singing, much to everyone's annoyance, eventually mentions that he and his taciturn partner Clarence travel this route often, transporting cargo. He nods toward the roof of the coach, hinting at whatever, or whomever, lies strapped up there, but offers no further explanation. With Thigpen finally done singing, the passengers begin to chat among themselves. The fur trapper shares a story about a past relationship he had with a Hunkpapa woman. Even though they couldn't speak the same language, he believes they connected because, deep down, all people share the same basic needs. This idea appalls Lady Betjeman, a devout Christian who insists that humanity is divided into only 2 groups, the righteous and the sinful. Her declaration sparks a debate on the nature of people, which soon includes the Frenchman René. Meanwhile, Thigpen and Clarence mostly stay quiet, occasionally chiming in with a brief remark as they observe the tension with mild amusement. When René boldly questions whether Lady Betjeman has remained faithful to her husband during their years apart, she is so scandalized that she nearly passes out. He tries to get the driver to stop the coach, leaning out the window to shout, but the vehicle doesn't slow. Thigpen calmly explains that company policy forbids unscheduled stops for any reason. To ease the tension, Clarence starts singing a melancholy folk tune. The song soothes Lady Betjeman and even moves Thigpen to tears. The trapper, increasingly curious about the 2 quiet men, finally asks what exactly they do for a living. Thigpen answers plainly, they're bounty hunters. He shares how they operate. He keeps their targets talking while Clarence takes them out with one swift blow. What's more unsettling is Thigpen's admission that he enjoys watching the moment of death, fascinated by the look people get as life leaves them. The other passengers grow visibly disturbed by this revelation, increasingly unnerved about what might be waiting for them in Fort Morgan. When the stagecoach finally arrives, Thigpen and Clarence haul their cargo, a corpse, into the hotel where all the passengers are staying. René, Lady Betjeman, and the trapper hesitate before stepping down, reluctant to follow. Eventually, they enter the building as well. As the coach disappears down the road, René shuts the hotel door behind them, his expression darkening with the realization, if anything goes wrong inside, there's no escape.